And first up tonight, for the second time in just about as many weeks, we go right to the heart of the country, Alice Springs, the same Alice where the Arunda people have lived for at least 20,000 years, where pioneering Europeans gave a whole new meaning to the word tough, the place where they race camels, hold wonderfully mad boat races in dry riverbeds, and where Peter Finch finally caught up with Virginia McKenna in the 1956 movie classic A Town Like Alice. Well, here's Outback character and very much an Alice local, Dick Kimber.
My name's Dick Kimber and I've lived here for 32 years. It's been my privilege to do so. And if I were to think what the people of the town think of me, there's Dick the Scrubber, might be one of them, or the bloke who has a bit of a yarn outside the post office. Well, everyone calls this place Alice Springs now, but for the Arunda Aboriginal people it's Mbuntua and the Churacha Hills all about it. This is the caterpillar dreaming going in here, travelling into Alice Springs, and these are the hills as they go along in their waving sort of emotion like that, are the streams of caterpillars coming in to go to Mbuntua to dance their dances and perform their ceremonies, and in that create the landscape of Alice Springs. The only reason I know all of this is because I've been privileged enough to talk with many of the senior men and women of this country and learn from them. In the period up to the 1930s, the actual area here was called Stewart, after the explorer John McDowell Stewart, but then by the 1930s the name Alice or Alice Springs had become so prevalent that there was a formal change to Alice Springs, meaning both here and the telegraph station. This was the most brilliant engineering feat, the most modern feature of the world at its time. This thing that went 3,000 kilometres across Australia, then by undersea cable linking it right through to London, to the commercial centre of the world as it then was, and worldwide connections really occurred through this thing. So whatever you like to put up now in the greatest computer world we have now, this was the equivalent then. One of the first places built was a store, another one was a hotel. At one stage, 100 years ago, they had 6 hotels for a population of 14 adults, I think. The very first school in Alice Springs didn't actually exist as a school. It was just a tent and a few bough shelters and things around the place, or wherever they could fit in, and that was 1914. And the school was composed of between 10 and 20 students, and in fact one of them had her age put up just a little bit to make sure they had the right numbers. Once you have a school, you've got a sense of a town that's almost got substance and civilising elements in it, but it remains fairly static really until World War II, and then it's like an explosion of interest. Everything got going, and you started to get the first suburbs, 1947. The first women's dress shop, 1947. The first sense of a town becoming a modern town is immediately post-World War II. But it was also crucially important for the beginnings of a gigantic wave of tourism building up. And I think that's a crucial element of the development of Alice Springs. You've got this absolutely positive elements within it that people have now accepted widely instead of sort of challenging it a bit. I think many people who've lived there for any length of time say we're very fortunate to have had the positive benefits out of that. Historically, the town is really Arunda Aboriginal people, but now with a greater mix of various other groups of Aboriginal people, as well as the general European and the Afghan descent people, and I think all of that makes for a super positive mix of people in the best possible circumstances, but also it's like a bit of a rubber band. It's like a bit of elastic that gets stretched and it's vibrancy and dynamics is terrific at its best, but also can get to a point of almost snapping, or the tension gets too great and it slips one way or the other, and so you get a clash. I think the beauty of living in Alice Springs is that you can be only 10 kilometres out or 1,000 kilometres out in the deserts that surround here, and there's a sense of absolute beauty and vastness of land and sky, but also a wonderful sense of silence. The sense of the night sky, the dazzling brilliance of the stars. You really could just about do chin-ups on the Milky Way, or reach up and pull down pendants of brilliant stars, but it's better to leave them up there and just enjoy it.
Chin-ups on the Milky Way, what a great line, Dick. Well, joining us on the couch, another bloke who calls the Alice home after spending most of his adult life in the top end, singer, yarn spinner, bush historian, stockman, croc hunter, you name it, he's probably done it. And now, just to complete his colourful biography, New Dimensions guest, Ted Egan, good to see you.
Thanks, George. Good to be here.
Well, it's lovely to have you. I would be very surprised to have you tell me that you don't know Dick.
Well, there's a new word in Alice Springs now, of course. If you're late for an appointment, where have you been? Oh, I got kimbered. I met Dick for a yarn outside the post office, as he says.
He hates the yarn, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Now, one of the things he said there that I wanted to toss around with you is he said that he saw the Alice, and probably the territory as a whole, I imagine, as and I jotted it down, a super positive mix of people.
Yeah, well, it's I've lived around all parts of the territory for a long time, and it's the people that are the fascination for me, for example. And here am I writing, I virtually make a living out of writing songs about fascinating, larger-than-life people.
Faithful wife, but never a bride, bred his sons for the cattle runs. Don't weep for the drover's boy.
What about that rubber band line that Dick used, though? That even though it is a wonderful mix, occasionally the tension is there.
Oh, it's volatile, but that's the key to the territory. You've got to learn to roll with the punches. If you don't like Aboriginals, for example, don't go and live in the territory, because they're there, they're part of the place, and they were there first.
How would you describe the current state of race relations in the territory when words like reconciliation are tossed around, etc.?
Oh, good. There's a great body of people who are positive about things, and there's the realisation that you've got to live with one another and put up with the differences and delight in the differences. Yeah, that's the thing. At a party at my place, you'll have Dick Kimber, his wife Margaret, who's a well-known scientist. You'll have actors, photographers, painters, black trackers, politicians, all mixing together, having a bit of a drink and a bit of a sing-song, and that's what makes the territory a vital place. We still make our own entertainment.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, we talk now about both, and the Prime Minister uses the term practical reconciliation, other people use the term spiritual reconciliation. I mean, how are the two going? It strikes me that in a way, we've come to grips with the spiritual reconciliation, but the practical side of things has still got a long way to go.
Yeah, I always think it's a real pity that people don't grasp the joy of it all, because I'd love the day when every kid in Australia, regardless of what your genetic background is, has a totem and has a skin name and something to do with an original connection with the land. All of my grandkids have got my grandson Joe's a flying fox, and they all black cockatoos. And
what is it about? I mean, do we have a romantic sort of vision of the territory, let alone just the Alice? I mean, is it the wonderful place that we think it is, or are we kidding ourselves?
No, it is. The scenery's fantastic. The weather's good. The main thing is room to move. We had this old drover lived with us, and he said, "Give me room. I need room to move." And he's typical, of the delightful people that you meet. When he died, we sat round for about 2 hours, about 100 people, all exchanging one-liners that he'd delivered. And he'd lived with us, and I hadn't heard half of these one-liners. He delivered one of the great ones of all time. I took him down to the cricket in Adelaide, and we went to this Italian restaurant for a meal, and he said, "Oh, Dad," he said, "I'm not real good on this wog tucker." He said, "Order something for me." So I ordered him a veal parmigiana, and out comes the Italian waiter with this beautiful dish, and bow tie and puts it in front of Tom, you know, waiting for a bit of word of approval. And Tom looked at it and he said, "By gee, you'd walk around that if you saw it on the footpath." And, you know, people, you're surrounded by people like this.
We were up there recently, we did our NAIDOC specials there, and I mean, I love it every time I go there, and I got the feeling it should be compulsory for all Australians to go to the top end and the centre at some stage.
Well,
they don't really know this country unless they have.
Yeah, Neris, my wife says that. It's the Territory should become the world's holiday place. And
I guess in a funny way, that there's a paradox, isn't it? I mean, whilst we would like that to happen at another level, if it did happen, would it wreck that place?
Yes, you need to leave it pristine and always have that room to move.
Yeah. What's your feeling about the whole statehood thing? Should it become a state? It strikes me as being thoroughly illogical that it's not.
It's a bit illogical because we don't have the numbers, but there's the prestige. People want to sort of say we deserve statehood because we worked hard at it, and sooner or later we've got to industrialise the north, and the new railway will help things like that. And
Yes.
It's so logical. All the minerals are in the north, all the markets are in the north. Why don't industrialise the north and still have the room to move?
You talked about the characters. You were going to, and I won't accompany you, I'll assure you that, a little ditty about one of the characters.
Well, you know, I spent many years as a young bloke in Darwin, and I do write songs about people, and I bought you a little CD. It's a song that I sing about
Granny.
this lovely old Chinese woman, and she's part of the story, and I just write songs about people like this and things like... What you walking down Kavanagh Street, silk pyjamas and slippered feet, selling mangoes, veggies, eggs, and she'll run you off your legs. That's the way it is with Granny.
Fantastic. I knew we couldn't get you in here without you singing.
That's right.
Ted,
It's a
thanks
must.
a lot.
Thank you, George.
Lovely to see you.